you. So we're going to we have a little format, but I definitely want to keep this informal. And we have some fun conversation pieces to pick the brain of Amanda Kopko because she's our special guest today. And I'll allow her to do an introduction in a minute. But I first want to give everyone a backstory as to how this started. And I know we're waiting for possibly a couple more candidates to jump on. But for those of you that are on, thank you for completing the Google form, because what I have done is taken your answers and put them into a presentation. And Amanda has actually done it as well. So we get to kind of learn a little bit about her. And then I'll introduce Diana, who's also from MSB Resources. So the first thing I want to do is so here's our agenda. And again, we're going to keep this informal, but I do want to give you kind of an understanding as to how this call series started. And then a little bit about who I am, who MSB is, and how we can be a resource. Definitely highlight Amanda because she's taking the time to be here and lend her industry expertise, which goes back 17 plus years in the industry. And then what we're going to do is each person is going to have 2 minutes to basically spotlight themselves. And then after one person goes, we're going to ask Amanda kind of a fun question. And then we'll alternate between spotlighting somebody and then asking Amanda a question. So that's kind of the format. And then we're going to talk about, you guys all answered what you thought was going to be a great answer to how to keep an organization sticky. And you'll understand why I asked that later, but we're going to keep those answers anonymous. So let us kick it off with our special guest, Amanda Kopko. So I want to just give you, before she gives her bio, I've known her for quite some time. I used to be in Chicago at a time that she was in Chicago. She's not in Chicago anymore geographically, but we have crossed paths while she was at a few different management companies in her past. But she lends a lot of expertise. She's seen it all. And I think the varying management companies she's worked for gives her a lot of perspective. And so she's one of the reasons why I chose to ask her to be here today, also because she's a badass. So with that, Amanda, do you want to kind of give us a little bit more about you that I didn't share?
Yeah, thank you, Tara, for the warm welcome. And it's really great to be on the call with everybody. And I'm excited to be asked to join this call. I do have a tremendous amount of experience interviewing candidates. I find myself, Tara asked me to describe myself in 3 words, and grower was probably the 4th word, because that's genuinely where I end up gravitating to when it comes to jobs and roles. I have tended to the last couple of years be in startup type capacities. So as far as my background, to Tara's point, I worked with her back in the Greystar days when I was regional property manager in Chicago. I had, at the time, we were in grow mode, and we had, I think I personally had 6 owners and 4 lease ups, and oversaw about 50 employees, and we were hiring as quick as possible. And I learned a ton about just, a quick read on people, and I needed folks to be able to be a long-term fit, and I wanted to make sure that I was hiring and identifying candidates that were flexible and also had that growth spirit at the time. And so I worked with Greystar for, I believe it's almost 6-7 years with them. And then I was the regional property manager there. And then I pivoted over to a more of a smaller company ownership that was an owner operator that was working in vacation rentals in Turks and Caicos. And they had some dirt in the ground and a shovel in the ground in Chicago. And I worked with them to kind of build out their residential property management division, and hired some folks in that capacity. And I also brought some folks with me. And more recently, I worked in startup in marketing. So I was running a marketing agency, and a company that when I started had about 5 employees, and when I left had about 20. So growth plans there. And now with Riverview Companies, I'm excited to have a new home in the brick and mortar is in Crofton, Maryland. and we're starting growth in property, third-party property management. And our territory is anything basically east of the Mississippi. So I've been chasing down and being strategic when it comes to opportunities and third-party management. And we've been, this week alone, we have 3 takeovers. So you
Oh,
can
wow.
imagine that I'm in a situation where I'm going to be hiring again quite quickly. So I hope that helps with my overview and kind of where I come from and my background. And
It
I'm just
does.
excited to be here and meet faces and network.
Thank you. And I love the words you use to describe yourself, and that the fact that you added a 4th word. And I'm sure, like, I think the resiliency piece that you highlighted as one of your words, I think we're going to see a theme of that as we kind of talk to the candidates and get a little bit of your insight. What I want to do is kind of share just really quick oops, hold on. We're going to pause on that. We're going to share the why, as to why I started this, and then tell you about our team. So when I found myself out of work this summer, I really thought that the best thing that I could do to serve myself was to serve others. It's kind of like a joke. And Amanda and I were on a pre-call about this, and I was like, it's kind of like when you have a bad day, the best thing you can do is either go compliment somebody, or go do something nice for somebody else. And it really just makes you feel better. And I think something that we don't talk about enough is when you're open to work and you put that green banner on LinkedIn, the vulnerability of what that takes, and just whether, no matter the circumstance that makes you open to work, it doesn't matter. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's hard. And so I started this series on my own before I even landed at MSB Resources. And then when I got here, in the spirit of our name, I was like, why can't we continue this and be a resource to candidates? We're a little bit different in terms of how we operate as a company, which I'll get into in a second. But really, this is a space to allow you all to be seen, be heard, and as a resource to you, what we're going to do is, during your spotlight, our marketing company is going to clip your portion of time that you talk, and we're going to give that to you. And please feel free to use that in your outreach. So Amanda and I were also kind of talking about, this day and age, you have to be creative in how you reach out to employers. You have to be a little bit more proactive. What does that look like? So that's the spirit of what we want to do here. But Amanda, I wanted to show really quick, because we won't go through everything here, but I did want to highlight some of the things that you shared with your questions. And the one thing I want to just kind of say and highlight is this quote: our industry doesn't steal talent, your team is yours to lose. I think that is a profound quote. And just really quickly, what does that mean to you, that maybe the folks on this call could kind of better understand?
Yeah, no, of course. So especially with multifamily and real estate in general, I mean, I think we've all been there, right? Where, you want to make sure that you're, as a leader anyways, that you're making sure you're taking care of your people and you're giving them the right attention, you're fulfilling their needs, because at the end of the day, I think it's important to be hiring people that are biting at your ankles and wanting to the next step and growing with you and your team. And it's a reflection of you as a leader. And I think, if someone goes to work somewhere else, I don't think poaching is really a term we use, in our industry. I think it's genuinely something that you need to reflect on as a leader. If you're losing talent, you should be asking yourself, what could I do better next time? Or, what could have went sour? And I don't think that it should be, finger pointing, because you never know where that person's going to end up. And, you could be working
Very
with
true.
them in a capacity where they're working for you. And then in a week later, they're working with you, or you're working for them. I mean, it's a very small world in our network, in our industry. And I think it's just being mindful that you lose people. We don't steal people. So
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. So I've kind of highlighted a little bit about me, but Diana, I would love for you to take a moment and share with everybody who you are, and a little bit about yourself and your role at MSB.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. And thanks for joining. It's a fun time to just meet new people, hear their stories, and learn a little bit about, what the next step might look like for you all. I'm a recruiter on the team. And so day to day for me is a lot of conversation around different candidates, their backgrounds, what might be the best next fit. That way, if I come across a fully open search, a confidential search, I can help to align, what might make sense for you in your next step, as well as what might make sense for the client that I'm working with. I actually have a lot of history working in higher education. Both leadership programs and onboarding. So complementing my current role as a recruiter, building relationship and really helping identify the next step, the kind of dream opportunity for people. That's really where I like to hone my skill set.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. One thing that you'll find about MSB, and I'll show this really quick, just as a quick screenshot, what makes us different. One of the reasons I came over here was because the average tenure of the MSB employee is over 10 years. It's unbelievable, the company and the culture that Brad Schwartz, our founder, has created. And we're not a traditional agency. We're not a staffing agency. We are truly a recruiting / headhunting firm. So most of the people we work with are passive candidates. They're not necessarily the ones that have the open to work banner. And we're so ingrained in the industry that most of our candidates come by referral because we've been in the industry for over 20 years. So if you yourself are not in our database and you want to work with us, please reach out to myself or Diana. We would love to help you. In addition, if you know other folks in the industry who want the confidentiality to be able to look without jeopardizing where they currently are, that is something we take very seriously. So please feel free to refer them our way. We have a great referral program as well. So I just want to touch on that. And one thing that, Amanda, this is kind of ties into what you were talking about with, doing your best to keep people and providing a great culture. The last thing I'll say about MSB that most people don't even realize is our secret weapon in our back pocket is Dr. David Wyman. So he is not your typical couch psychologist, but he has been a partner of ours for over 15 years. Wherever you all land, or wherever maybe you have been, if you think about what your company culture could have looked like and maybe done differently to keep you there, not necessarily the role you were just at, but maybe in your previous roles, we're astounded that in the first week, there's so much turnover when people get there. And that usually has to do with maybe poor onboarding, misaligned expectations, poor communication. There's all sorts of things. So we also work with companies to create a more sticky organization, which I love that term. And Dr. Wyman basically can kind of do an autopsy of companies to find out where their blind spots are to prevent turnover from happening in the first place, which I think is ironic coming from a recruiting firm that we provide that resource. So let's kick it off with, Amanda, we have some fun questions that we've come up with, and I'd love to kind of do this. And then we're going to, as soon as you kind of answer this one, we're going to kick it off with our candidate spotlights. And I think, Brenda, you might be first after, if I'm trying to remember our lineup, after Amanda answers this. So the question is, with most of the hiring processes now happening virtually, what qualities or skills really help a candidate shine through the screen and make a strong impression on you?
The first one's actually pretty simple. It's just smiling. I mean, it can't be that hard. But it really helps alleviate the stress on both sides of the coin, right? I mean, I think you're nervous yourself, but the person interviewing you can be nervous too. So I think just having that smile kind of helps reduce the stress. And I think when it comes to virtual and hiring, doing the research and the homework of the company, I know that everybody knows this, but to actually visualize, it's like that be the ball attitude and visualize you having that job and asking the questions that they're not used to you being, catch them a little bit off guard and let them know that you've done the homework and you've gone that extra step to really visualize yourself in that position already. And that helps you to kind of interview them. I would say those two things would be helping you set yourself apart for sure.
I think you bring up a great point. One thing that I think most people don't think about is you're right, the person interviewing you, they might be nervous too. And so I think there's nothing more than that you can do to relax both sides is a smile. So I love that it wasn't a complicated answer. It's something that maybe we forget about and take for granted. And how that if most of our, actually, I'm curious with the candidates that are on this call, are most of you doing your interviewing virtually? Show of hands. Yeah, so I mean, it's even harder. It's more challenging in my opinion, because you don't get the full body read. And I'm basically like the neck up. So
yeah,
it's like you really have to focus on the smile.
For sure. And I think the other thing too with that is making sure you're well lit, and if it is virtual, making sure you have a light on and it's not some scary space environment as well, right?
You're in a closet.
Right. You'd be surprised what you see. But yeah, I think those things just help, with putting yourself in the best light forward. So
I love that. So I am going to ask Diana, can you be my partner in keeping time?
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is we've got some good questions woven in between each of the candidate spotlights. So let's start with each candidate getting 2 minutes. And then after everyone has gone and we've answered a couple other questions and chatted with Amanda, if we have more time at the end, we can decide how to spend that time, either asking Amanda some more questions, going over like tips and tricks and having it more of like a networking, or if you maybe forgot to say something in your spotlight and you want to add to it, we can see how we're doing on time. So if that works for everybody, I was right. Brenda, you are going to be the first person. And so what I would love to do is just kind of tell you that like this is your time to say whatever it is you want about you. On the next slide, I will have the answers that you provided. I thought there were some fun questions that we came up with to get us to learn a little bit more about you guys beyond your previous job title and just your background. It's more about like how you think, which I always think are fun. So thanks for being cool with us being a little cheesy. So you can either speak to the background, the slide that's there, or you can kind of talk about anything that you want about your past and maybe what you're looking for in your current role. So the time is yours. Any questions before Diana kind of starts the timer?
No, I think I am ready.
Okay, perfect. Diana, are you ready? And whenever you want to come off mute and interrupt, we'll do that. But let's kick it off with Brenda. And you do have a nice headshot, by the way. I do love that.
I did that with my iPhone.
Oh, I love it. Looks great. So Brenda, take it away. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, so my name is Brenda Santamaria. I am from Fort Myers, Florida. Fun fact about me, I did move to Pennsylvania 3 years ago. I started in the industry, I would say about 4 to 5 years ago in Florida. I was a leasing consultant. I was a leasing consultant there for about a year. I moved to PA and became an APM under Morgan Properties. I was there for about 2 years. Unfortunately, I went through some family emergencies, so I did step down for a while. And then when I got back into it, I was a multi-site supervisor for about a year and a half. It was 2 acquisitions that were Class B plus properties, borderline Class B minus. And then as for now, I'm a property manager at a Class A plus property in Wexford, PA. Reason I am looking to go to a different route is just opportunity for growth. That's something that's really important for me in a reasonable time. So my goal in the next 5 years is to be a regional manager. I am okay with taking a step down if that means, growth means taking a step down from being property manager back to APM. That way I can get there in a faster time frame. I've never been opposed to that. As I know, depending on what the companies have available now, it might mean taking a step down. To be able to get to that role, I feel like you have to see it from like a bird's eye view, and see that you can get there. You just have to maybe take a step down. Some of the questions that I put, or that you guys asked on here, one of my favorite quotes is, "Through every storm, there's a rainbow at the end." I actually saw that on one of the Pittsburgh bridges. I looked up the quote later on, but it just meant something to me that day, just because like whenever you're going through like a really rough day, or your team's not really feeling it that day, there's just always going to be a rainbow at the end. So through every storm, you can weather it, and you can apply that into your regional role, property manager role. And especially that's really important when you have a team under you. You have to be able to, even if you're having a bad day, make sure your team doesn't really see that, just because they'll feed off whatever energy you have.
Thanks,
So true.
Brenda.
Diana, are you off
Yeah.
mute because we're at time? Okay, perfect.
We're at time.
Brenda, you did a great job. I
Thanks.
love
I tried.
that, and I love your quote. I think that's great. And just one other thing to share that I didn't share before is, since these calls are going to be available for playback, Amanda and I and so many other people on this call know a lot of other people. So you just never know within our own networking, aside from MSB specifically, you never know who Jon knows or Dave knows, and be like, oh, you know what? I met this woman, Brenda. She might be great for the role that you're looking for. So I think this is just also showing the power of networking. And in that vein, if you guys feel comfortable in the chat, if you want to share your LinkedIn so that you guys can get to know one another after this call, friendships have formed through these calls, so you just never know. All right,
Thank
so
you.
let us go to a next question for Amanda. Diana, do you want to go ahead and ask Amanda this one?
Yeah. So Amanda, have you ever partnered with a recruiting and headhunting company like MSB Resources? And if so, what do you see as the benefits?
So of course I have. I've actually used MSB back with Greystar.
Yeah.
And there are folks, as to Tara's point, that are still working for MSB that I worked with. I don't want to date myself, but it's over 10 years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to work with a recruiting company. I actually also, this position I'm in now was, I worked on the other side of it with a headhunter. So it works for companies and organizations to help soften that, there's a lot of talent out there, and helping really truly, get kind of the right fit from a recruitment perspective. And then also as a talent and someone looking for a position, it's important to have someone on your side when it comes to negotiating your salary or making sure
Very true.
you asked all the right questions, and just a sounding board, to be honest, when you're going through the process. We've all been there.
I love that you said that you worked with someone from MSB over 10 years ago, because that speaks to one of the reasons I joined this firm, is the fact that we're sticky. No one's leaving here. Right, Diana?
Yeah, that's facts there. And I was going to add to that, even when I don't have a position for somebody, I'm normally reviewing their resume and offering feedback on what I'm seeing from a hiring perspective and what might be able to give them better traction based on the goals that they've shared with me. So I think just having that second perspective is really meaningful.
That's so true. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that we do that. Dave, you are up next, my friend. Any questions before we let you kind of take the reins?
No, I'm not sure I'm excited enough to fill a whole 2 minutes though, but we'll see.
All right, well, let me pop up your slide, and Diana, when you're ready with the timer, let me know. Okay, you're good. All right, Dave, take it away and let us know about yourself.
Thanks. So I've been in multifamily on the vendor side, supplier side for, gosh, since 2011. Before that, Diana, you might know part of this. I owned and operated radio stations somewhere in Dayton, Ohio. So WCLR, ZLR, and PTW sold into Cox Communications a long time ago. But since that time, I've been in multifamily. My passion is leading teams and growing companies. the things I've really enjoyed is to find something that, what broken's a strong word, but broken, or needs some growth and so forth, and get in there and just roll the sleeves up and get it done. Some of my greatest success comes from helping people get to President's Club and things past that. In terms of companies, my preference, again, something that needs some work to it. I'm not the kind of guy that wants to land somewhere and go up by 3%. That there's not enough of an emotional adrenaline push for me there. So I need to be able to pull things up and over. A couple of things on the slide. Fortune favors the bold has always been one of my favorite quotes. Whether it's in a job search or anything else, basically boils down to, if you don't take a shot, you don't get a shot. You gotta be willing to go and put some skin in the game, and no risk, no gain, right? Kitchen
That's it.
appliance, you can probably tell a little bit from the tempo. Let's get her done. Let's go, put that stuff in there and move it. So that's what I'm looking for, is something with some, has a need for some growth and some help. There you go.
I love that. And I have just a kind of a quick question about your background. So I know you've been on
Yeah.
the supplier side. Have you thought about going to the other side, like Amanda's side? Would there be any applicable skills for you to go onto that side, or do you is your love for the supplier side in our industry?
My love is not for any specific vertical or side. My love is for helping people improve and companies improve. I've worked with broadcast companies, I've worked with, advertising sales and so forth. Yeah, I've got a lot of background in business management and P&L management as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's particular to which side of the desk you're on. Something needs some help and growth. That's the passion.
Love that. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Of course.
So Amanda, back to you with some of the fun questions. I love stories, and Diana and I and the team always talk about like fun stories. We always have a new one each day, I feel like, internally, where we've got like a standout candidate. And we've just, our love is placing people in their new homes, literally and, figuratively. So just with your years in the industry, is there someone or some story that kind of comes to mind about an unforgettable candidate that maybe you've hired in your time?
There's a lot, actually. I can think of one most recently. I think it's when I was actually, you'll appreciate this, Dave, because I had about 2 years in advertising sales, and I had a meeting set up with Reddit. I was looking to purchase and get a level of understanding of their advertising strategy and platform. And so when doing that, it was genuinely just a vendor call. And I yes, I was recruiting on the back end of it, but I was full blown looking to purchase from Reddit their advertising. And through the conversation, and that person that was meeting with me, we just hit it off. And he asked me the right questions. I was looking for a salesperson. He was hungry. He was following up with me. He wasn't doing it in a way that was annoying. Fully engaged with the conversation. I felt like I knew him for years after I got off the phone of that 30-minute call. And to be honest with you, he was interviewing, but he didn't know. And I ended up hiring him within a week after of that meeting. And then it was just genuinely his ability to ask the right questions, to do it in a way that, wasn't an annoyance. And he was very successful, very good at what he did. And sales, he had that, I always say, you have to be humble and smart and friendly. And that's, he just nailed it. And I needed him on my team. I knew he was going to do a good job, and he did.
It's a crazy story. You just never know. Like here, he thought he was selling you ad space, and then look what transformed out of that conversation. That's amazing. I love that. Diana, is there one that comes to mind with you that you've had kind of in your time at MSB or outside of MSB?
I think it's really when there's such an alignment between the candidate and what they're saying in regard to their goals and their operation philosophy, and then finding that with a particular client. I find a lot of the magic in the not in the hard skills, but in those soft skills that really
Mhm.
make sense for them joining the team. So that's why I think a conversation is always warranted, whether that's giving advice on resume feedback or learning more about somebody's background and true goals to see if there's any alignment. I think it all starts with a conversation, and you can't do that with AI a lot of the time. So having that personalized approach is really important.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point with AI. Like there's no way to deny that it's consuming our world in so many different things that we touch, whether as a consumer or just at work. But having some of those human touches, back to like what Amanda said in the very beginning, just smiling, right? I mean, it's some of those basic fundamentals. I'm curious, this isn't like scripted, but I'm curious, like by show of hands, is anyone on this call after an interview doing what I love to do, which is actually mail a handwritten card? Anyone doing that?
Absolutely.
John, you are?
Oh yeah.
Is that something you've
Every time.
always kind of done?
Always, every time.
Oh,
Yep.
I love
Depending
that.
on the
And I think
situation,
it,
I have even sent a little gift or something if it's, something I really want, something to make them remember me.
I
I've
think it's
written a
so
card,
memorable.
but I do send like a thank you email.
Mhm. Is there something in your thank you email that, like a tip that you want to share with the others that you find works really well, or some kind of Brenda flair?
I mean, I don't typically send those often because I've only had 2, 3 jobs in the past 3 to 4 years.
Mhm.
But I mean, when I do send them, I would just make sure you kind of stand out and do say something personal about yourself, why you want the job, why you would stand out. I mean, the usual is that, but give more information about yourself than you would a person, just so they can see that, you are human and you're not just looking to have another job for money, and that you actually care about the job, basically.
Yeah, I love that. And I always like adding a little bit of fun and flair into it so that they can really get a little piece of your personality. And so now, once this call is over and we are able to send out your individual kind of clips, I hope that that will be another welcome way for you to kind of get some notice out in the marketplace. Thanks for sharing that. So let's kick it off with my buddy Jon Fink. Jon, before you go, I just want to share with everyone just like a quick story. Jon and I actually used to work together years ago. It's been a long time that we've been coworkers, but such a testament to this industry. We have shown up at so many of the same conferences, and it's interesting how even if we only work with someone for a short time, I don't know, Jon, if you would agree, but isn't this industry, and Amanda, you probably agree too, like you still kind of see that person as a friend. Like you still feel like even if you haven't seen them in maybe a year plus, it's still kind of that nurturing industry where I feel like we all have each other's back. So it was fun working with Jon and just seeing you at conferences. And I'm glad that now we're on this call today.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's been 10 years from when I started back at the BG days. And that was one of my first, I probably shouldn't have said that on this, I'm sorry.
Oh God, no, it's fine.
That was when I first forays into a national company. And I actually remember the first call I was on with you, because I didn't report directly to you, but you and Kelly did a call together, and you made an impression that day, and you've always kind of been, we've crossed paths many times, like you said, and I've always admired how you go about your day and how you carry yourself and your reputation in this industry. So you've done a great job. So congratulations, and you should pride
Thanks.
yourself
I
on that.
appreciate it. Appreciate it. Well, I'm going to pop over to your slide. And I will say, not to steal your thunder, but when I saw that you love Rudy, I was like, because I'm a good old Irish girl, and from Chicago, and South Bend is not too far away. So I love that movie too. But so Jon, Diana, are you good with your timer on your end? Okay, Jon, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I did not expect to find myself in this position. Was having great success, and things were rolling, and for whatever reason, things change, and change can be really healthy. And I'm hopefully handling it really well. You talked a little bit ago about the green banner and putting it on your LinkedIn and being vulnerable. I just did that yesterday, and it had been a month since I kind of parted ways, and I kind of thought, fortunately, I've had a lot of people reach out because I do have a lot of contacts in the industry. I'm kind of a serial networker, and I know a lot of people say that, but I love it. I love people. And it's weird because a lot of times I'm also describe myself as an introvert, but I'm in the networking business, the business development, and I love people, but I really like to get those one-on-one interactions. A lot of times when I walk into a room and I look around, I find somebody and I'm like, what's their story? What are they about? What can I bring for them? Very few times in my life where I've thought, what can I get? Has it ultimately benefited me? It's what can I give? And that's always been a positive for me. And that kind of comes back to like my why is. I'm really going to date myself, but I started in this industry in 1999. So, and I learned really early on, and that was with a landscaping company, and talking with a leasing agent one day, and a mom and her two kids walk into that community wanting to find a place. I don't know their story, but that mom looked desperate that day to find a home. And I see those two little kids, and what could I do that day as a landscaper to help affect that? I made sure the grass was mowed, there wasn't weeds in there, and just things like that. So that mom knew that she had a nice place or a home for their kid to lay down her head at night. And every step I've kind of taken in the multifamily industry, that's kind of been my why as to how I'm going to go there and what I'm going to do and what that company does to affect that little kid when they put their head down at night, and that mom can feel comfortable living there, because that's one of our most important things in our lives is our home and how we feel comfortable in protecting our family.
I love that
Thanks,
story.
Jon.
Diana gave me the flag.
Well, thank you. It's oh gosh,
Absolutely.
those
Well,
2
we'll
minutes of
try to
time.
circle back with more discussion after that. And we're trying to be equal with time. So let's pop back over. Diana, if you want to kind of take this one, we're going to go back to our fearless expert, Amanda, and see maybe which her thoughts are on this question.
Awesome. I can imagine that you've conducted a ton of interviews, whether in person or online. If you, Amanda, had to give one big piece of advice for an interview, what would it be? And would you incorporate any things to avoid or must-dos?
So I think when I think of this question, I think of the prep prior to the interview. Make sure you're using a professional email address.
Yeah,
and
so true.
I'm gonna take this time too, just because of the situation we're in today. But with it being the day after election, make sure you're mindful of what you post on social media, because
Yep.
there is something to be said with some social listening that's happening. Just be thoughtful if you're looking for work of what you share online, because that, that can be seen by all. And just like Jon, you're great. I mean, the resilience, I think being positive and being resilient, that shines through. Like your quick 2-minute elevator pitch. I mean, you were positive, you're resilient. This is the attitude that's necessary to get to the step and success that you want.
I would add to Amanda's suggestion, just with thinking about when you're responding to any interview questions, even if they ask it in a yes/no format, try to expand beyond that and think of an example that you can recall back, share that's going to highlight the impact that you had in each particular instance.
That's really great. I totally agree with that. And Amanda, I have to share a fun story. I don't remember who this was, but I saw a C-suite executive from a company on LinkedIn post that, to your point about like the email addresses and just being PC and all of that. He actually had a hard, fast rule that I will say it was a prop tech company, so I kind of get the why. If you had like a Hotmail extension or even like AOL, they viewed that as not really being up with the times and up with technology. And so if you're going to apply to work at a prop tech company in our space and you're using like a Hotmail, he was like, I didn't even look beyond that. And I tossed that resume to the side. Do you have any like hard, fast rules on stuff like that, like on a resume where you're like, nope, like any deal breakers that you can think of?
The job jumping, I obviously look at, if you're, if you're moving in different companies and you're moving up and you're elevating your position, that's one thing and that's totally fine. But if there's gaps, like have it on there why. It's okay if there's gaps and life happens, but just be clear on the why. I think that that's helpful. And then just when I'm looking at resumes, the fact-based information, like any detail you can give on a stat, put that in there. Don't be boring on paper, right? Because that makes your phone ring. And then from a marketing perspective, because I have a ton of marketing experience, there's also an option now for that electronic portfolio that you can do, and you don't even have to pay for it. Some of them give you a free trial for a month or something. Consider that to share more of your experience, because most of us are looking at your resume. No one's printing it out and looking at the paper copy. So just right, just be thoughtful of the receiver of that, and if you have a click through portfolio that can go a little bit deeper on your skill set, and even if there is a gap, maybe you put that you learned a skill or you did you got a credit certification on something. LinkedIn has a ton of them. Coursera has a couple of them.
Yeah, those are really, really great points. Brenda, you mentioned in the beginning that you had a little gap. Is that something you've identified on your resume or on LinkedIn, kind of to Amanda's point?
Yeah, I mean, I always explain it. Before I'm even asked about it, I say it up front. I don't explain it like on my resume, but it's something that I always disclose to my employers.
Gotcha. Well, this is really great. So Joseph, it is your turn, my friend, to kind of highlight you. Let me go to my timekeeper. Diana, you're good. And Joseph, before we kick into your slide, did you have any questions or anything before we kind of hit go?
Nope, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Oh, wait, I do want to share, restart the timer, Diana. I have to share one fun fact about Glenn Ross, your favorite movie. The movie that you listed. My husband is also in the industry, and he runs a sales team, and he actually just asked them last week as their homework assignment. They do a lot of training. They took a break from their traditional training and they all watched this movie. And they actually talked about it today on their internal call. So it was so funny that you selected that movie. I had to share that. Okay, sorry, Joseph, take it away.
No, that's good. Yeah, put that coffee down. Yeah, I'm Joseph, and I have a passion for real estate personally. So right now I'm working at Rebuild Properties. I'm the director of acquisitions, and I do love anything analyzing, underwriting, finding a good deal. But another job responsibility I have at this company is I was previously the construction project manager. So I love anything project management. I started my career in the Air Force. So after graduating from the Air Force Academy, I spent 5 years in the Air Force. And I think I owe a lot of my discipline and process-oriented nature to my time in the military. So I guess one of the things that I bring to my job and my career life is I'm always wanting to make a process out of everything, always wanting to have a feedback loop to be able to improve. And so my goals for any job, and especially for my next job, are to be able to add value, both with making new processes or adding a feedback loop, or just seeing a broader picture within the tasks we do day to day, how to make them better. But it's also to grow personally. So those are my two goals: add value and grow personally, because I really do have a strong passion for real estate myself. Just a few months ago, my wife and we bought a fourplex in Florida. And so we're going to renovate it and raise the rents and hopefully sell for a profit. But because of that, it's a mix of my career, my day job being in real estate, and my passion for real estate. I'd like my next job, my next move, to be growing those skills as well. So anything in commercial real estate or multifamily, So right now in my current job, I sort of dabble in all of those areas. Our company owned one office building. We own a few multifamily, and then we do a lot of single family renovations, and we do a few new build construction developments. And so because I have so much experience in the single family and just a little bit of experience in the multifamily and the commercial, I'd like to grow in that area. So moving to a bigger company that owns a lot more multifamily assets or commercial assets, I'd love to help analyze or underwrite or just project manage while I learn the business. So
Very
that's me.
cool. Thanks, Joseph.
Fantastic. I was surprised you didn't put Top Gun as your favorite movie, being the Air Force guy.
That's Navy.
Oh yeah, duh.
Go Air Force.
Sorry.
Joseph, this is for you.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
Put
there you
that
go. Coffee
down.
is for closers. I love that. I think we only have one more question for Amanda. So, and this can be, you can kind of take this wherever you want, but I always love to kind of talk about the unexpected things that maybe aren't like the traditional skills. So is there something like looking back that wasn't, if I could fluidly say the question, I'll start over. Looking back, is there a skill that helped you succeed but wasn't something you'd expect to matter when you started out in your career? And then any advice on how candidates can develop that early on? Like something unexpected about yourself.
Sure. So I think it'd be just my people skills and being vulnerable. I think, there's nothing wrong with not knowing an answer. And that vulnerability and the way that you handle not knowing, instead of, maybe creating an excuse for yourself as to why you can't get something done. I think that me just accepting that I don't know there's moments where I don't know what I'm doing. Is I for one, in my background, I've jumped similar to what Joseph has done, from single family to multifamily, and maybe it's some vulnerability there, but he brought up a good point. It's just he wants to take that skill set to the next level, and he has that passion. So I think, when it comes to an actual skill, I think, managing your vulnerability is one that can help.
I love that. And one thing I want to share that kind of leads off of what you just said, and it's a tip that I learned. I had an interview. It was a virtual interview during my time when I was open to work, and something that I heard on a podcast. I wish I could remember whose podcast it was, but it was a neutral podcast, not like multifamily specific. And to your point about like, I don't like the people that fake it till you make it. I don't believe in that. I think to your point about being vulnerable and being honest, there was a question that I was asked that I knew was a pretty thorough, I understood why they asked it, but I didn't want to just give an off the cuff answer. I wanted to give it more time. And I actually had said to the person, I think that question deserves more time and thought. Would you be okay if I follow up with you after this interview when I can give it a little bit more attention? They were shocked. I actually was shocked that I said that because I remembered that tip from the podcast. I'm not going to pretend that that's something I thought of because I didn't, but I was almost afraid to say it in the interview because I, like Amanda, I felt vulnerable admitting that I didn't really know how to answer that on the fly, but they actually respected me more for saying, hey, can I have more time to think about that? And I think you could still do that in an in-person interview. I think too, it could feel more pressure when you're sitting across the person, which usually is more of like the final stage interviews, depending on the level of what you're interviewing for. But that is a tip that I think is magic. So if that helps anyone, use it. Diana, how about you? Do you have any tips that you can think of like in kind of your time?
Yeah, I think in each job we wear so many different hats. So I think just an attention to detail is something that matters a lot in even just getting traction on your resume. So instead of identifying broad strokes, really diving into what the job description is detailing, if you have any insight to what they're specifically looking for, like using that particular language and then categorizing or at least like prioritizing what is most important first so that it presents first on your resume. that's my biggest piece of advice, and probably the best thing that I've been able to create some traction from a job search.
I love that. Charles wasn't able to make it, so we're going to skip through this for a second, but I just want to just spend one minute here. You guys were all really thoughtful about answering, in your opinion, what you thought made an organization sticky. And I think, and I left these anonymous, and I've got some other ones that other people have answered that are not on this call. I just think there's a central theme, and it's transparency and really listening to your people. And in my opinion, if you create a culture where nobody feels like they have a say or that they have a voice, I think that that's the first recipe for disaster. It shouldn't matter your title. I think that every person should feel included and heard. That's just my opinion. So I just wanted to thank everybody for answering this. Amanda, do you have anything kind of maybe to add without, you don't have to call out what you said specifically, but is there anything kind of culturally either at Riverview or in your past that you can kind of see as like a central theme for keeping people where they are, like good employee retention?
I think giving them the same respect that they give you. I mean, time too. I mean, if you have time to give them, respect that time. You know, if you're making it a one-on-one with your employee, don't move that time around or treat it like it could be canceled. I think it's important that there is, transparency. That's a good one. And when that in turn helps you feel valued, and that makes you feel part of the organization. And if you're on an island, especially with remote work, you can feel on an island quite quickly. So it's important to, ask more questions and get to know, I think the question asking and getting to know folks on a more personal level, that's not a bad thing. I think that helps grow a good dynamic team.
So true. Diana, do you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I was going to add, I think change management is really important as well when any changes are coming down from an organization. And it kind of goes back to that communication piece, but including everybody at the table, making sure from, your on-site to your corporate level employees, you're really helping them to create value or to see the change and create some buy-in for it, not just allowing a trickle-down effect. So I've seen that be really effective with different companies that are sticky.
That's fantastic. I think what I'd like to do is spend the last couple of minutes, since we have 4 candidates on the call, if we'll go back around to the start and then kind of have 5 minutes at the end for a little Q&A. But Brenda, give each of you 30 seconds. Is there anything else you want to add or that you forgot to say that you would like to share? Or if you're good, you can say you're good.
I think I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Dave, how about you?
I'm good. Thank you.
John?
Sorry, I was on mute. I didn't really get into what I'm looking for.
Yes.
So I've always kind of been on the maintenance and construction side of the supplier world. I'm not opposed. I've actually talked to a few people about joining the property side and operators in managing projects and that stuff. So that's kind of the world that I've been in and my background and expertise there. So wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
I love it. Joseph, how about you? Oh, you were on mute. Did you say you were good?
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Okay. So since we have someone like Amanda on the call, is there anyone that has questions for her specifically? Kind of now that you've gotten to know her a little bit, does anyone want to fire away something that is kind of hot on your mind?
I was going to share a piece of advice as well.
Sure.
Okay. One thing that recently happened, I was kind of negotiating an offer for my candidate, and she had something on the table that she felt like another company could not reach. And so she had said, I'm going to pass on this opportunity. I have something great on this side. Turns out, we were able to talk on it and go back to that company, counter with what she was getting offered, and we're able to match that salary and build out what she thought was impossible to do. So I think when you're experiencing something like that, or you don't think if it's possible, just ask the question. Don't make an assumption. Be transparent. Ask for what you're worth, and see if it happens, because it definitely could.
So you never know, right?
Yeah,
And you
totally.
never know unless you ask. That's so true. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So did anyone have questions? Because otherwise I'm going to give the floor to Amanda to kind of add any closing thoughts that she might have. No, you guys are good. All right, Amanda.
I had a question.
Oh, yes, Brenda, go for it.
For Amanda, I wanted to know, what would you say, like, obviously you have like an extensive career in property management. What would you say was your greatest lesson learned over the years?
Ooh.
My greatest lesson learned. I think sounds silly, but I mean, it's not. Treat people the way you want to be treated. When you're in, and you know this, Brenda, you work in an environment where things can get crazy. But you'd be surprised when I was sitting in your chair, because I was, as a property manager, wanting to be a regional manager. There are people that I can call on now, that I've worked with in different capacities, that now are vice presidents and running their own property management companies. And so you always want to be mindful of that relationship that you have. And it doesn't matter always who signed your paycheck, because that relationship is going to last a lot longer.
Thank you.
Sure. I want to thank Joseph, because I needed a new movie to watch, and so that's happening.
I love that. I will share one other quick tip that I have found to be very successful. And Amanda, I'm curious if you've ever received this before on your end, but if you have not done this, this was in my past, I actually made it to a final round because of this tool. So if you're not using LinkedIn voice message, use it. It has completely transformed my outreach, not just as a tool for an open to work candidate, but also in just trying to create that authentic human connection. So it's a very, it's like a walkie-talkie. So everyone has this tool. It's nothing you have to download. It's right there. And you have to be first connections with somebody, as far as I understand, and feel free to practice on me or Diana by sending one, because what I learned is that it's, once you press the button, it starts recording, but if you let go, it sends it. So you have to be mindful to practice this with people that you know before you send it to like a potential job opportunity. But I also was that person that was like, hey, Amanda, comma, it's really nice to meet you, period. And I was like, damn it, it's not voice to text. It's literally just as if you were, it's the same concept as if you were leaving a voicemail. So it takes some practice. So I just want to just share that with you, because also I'm using it to just introduce myself to some connections who maybe I haven't heard from them in a while, or they're a new connection on LinkedIn. And I might say something like, hey, Amanda, it's really great to connect with you. My name's Tara. Most people want to call me Tara, but it's Tara. I'm from Chicago. And I maybe like add a couple fun facts and just kind of let it go. There's no ask. I'm not trying to sell them something. I'm just trying to avoid the robot AI kind of world and inject some human authenticity. So just wanted to share that tip. It has
That's
been
a great
great
one
for me. Yeah.
I love that one. Another thing to kind of piggyback off that too is if you are constantly right now, it's a full-time job looking for a job, right? So when you're applying for positions in LinkedIn or in Indeed or whatever, I think it's important to try to nail down that hiring manager if you can, and do a little sleuth work online and do that extra step. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out to that hiring manager to kind of set you apart.
So true.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm going to add on to that. When you look at somebody's profile, they see that you've looked at their profile. And I think that's a good thing for somebody to see that you're doing your research and looking into them and their company and stuff also.
For sure. Cyber stalking is allowed.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
and
I hate to be
expected at this
rude.
point, right? And
Yeah.
the other
right.
thing is on your side, just make sure you shop yourself, right? Look at your LinkedIn, make sure you're saying the right things on there, and that can be updated. That can get you for sometimes when I'm in a hurry and I'm doing the cyber stalking, I look at the LinkedIn more than even the resume.
Yeah.
So be thoughtful of that. And there's ways to make yourself accessible on LinkedIn. Just make sure your settings are the right settings that you want when you want to be open and honest with people out there, getting yourself
Dave,
out
it sounds like you have to
Hey,
jump.
folks. Yeah, we apologize. I hate to be rude. I've got a 2 o'clock. I gotta hop on. Thank you
No,
all.
we're all, thank you.
Thanks,
We're all
Dave.
gonna
Nice
jump
to meet you.
too, but Amanda, I do
Right.
want to thank you so much
Appreciate you.
for your time today. With the acquisitions coming up, spending an hour with us and just lending your expertise and time is so valuable. So thank you so much for doing
I
that.
appreciate you, Tara, always, and I appreciate and honored to be here. So thank you. It was great to meet everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
for our candidates, we'll be following up with you with the clip once we're able to get that from our marketing team. And I'll send that and hopefully it'll be a resource to you. And thank you to my counterpart, Diana, for being a good co-pilot. And you guys
Absolutely.
have an awesome day. And please keep us posted on your job search journey. We're here to help you.
Bye, everyone.
Fun.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.